Hey everyone, Chris here. Welcome to Kraken Week. From July 1st to July 7th, the TTRPG YouTubers everywhere are joining together to present our viewers with everything from underwater and naval combat rules to optimized underwater character builds. There's underwater adventures and anything else related to oceans and seas in an event that we call Kraken Week. Now, I figured for our first ever Kraken Week, it would make sense to talk about the Kraken itself in D&D. Here it is up on your screen. It looks pretty scary, right? But if you're playing with players who know what they're doing, the Kraken can be a big disappointment. Let me provide an example. So, one Kraken, by itself, is supposed to be a deadly encounter for 5 17th level characters. A 6th 17th level character reduces it to a medium encounter, which still shouldn't be a cakewalk. So let's see how deadly it is. So we start with our DM. From the deck of the ship, you see clouds forming. A storm must be coming. While you batten down the hatches, you see water darken off your starboard side. The water churns and bubbles, and you see a horrible creature rise to the surface. Its gargantuan mouth is filled with razor-sharp daggers for teeth. You can sense a malevolent intelligence behind its devilish eyes, and 10 great tentacles burst from the water, speeding towards you. Roll initiative. The players roll initiative, with characters going on 18, 14, 11, 8, and 5. The DM rolls initiative, and rolls a 10, plus 0, so that's a 10. So on initiative 20, the lair action takes place. Let's see, what will we do? The water in the Kraken's lair becomes electrically charged. All creatures within 120 feet of the Kraken must succeed on a DC 23 Constitution saving throw or take 3d6 lightning damage on a failed save, or half as much on a successful one. I guess roll your saving throws or take 10 or 5 points of damage. Okay, well, on with initiative. So who goes on 18? The Wizard. Good luck, Wizard. This is a challenge rating 23 creature. So the Wizard casts Reverse Gravity. Big mistake, Wizard. The Kraken can make a dexterity saving throw to grab onto an object it can reach, and that could be your ship, and it's proficient in dexterity saving throws. Okay, so DM rolls, and they roll an 11, plus 7, that's 18. What's your DC, Wizard? 21, you say? Well, I'll just use a legendary... Wait a minute. Where is the legendary resistance on this creature? Okay, well, I guess I fail, so what happens? Oh, so my monster is floating 100 feet high in the air and can move with a fly speed, which it doesn't have. It has freedom of movement, but its speed hasn't been reduced, and it's not grappled or restrained, so I guess that doesn't do anything either. It's out of reach of the party and the ship with all of its tentacles now. So all I got left is Lightning Storm, which does 4d10 damage, save for half. Well, that's its entire action, and then it can do it again with 3 legendary actions. Well, I guess maybe in 5 rounds or so, it should be able to start dropping characters. I mean, assuming you don't heal or move further than 120 feet from it. Wait, does it get another saving throw? No? How long does this last? A minute, so 10 rounds. Alright, well, let's speed it up. What are the characters doing during that time? Oh, you're shooting cantrips and arrows and laughing? Don't laugh, this is a challenge 23 creature. This is a deadly encounter. And yeah, the Kraken is that easy to beat. It also is not going to save against your banishment spells, has no way around your wall of force, and depending on how your DM interprets its size, it's even potentially force cage bait. And there's some really weird stuff in this stat block. Like, this is a deep sea creature, and it's not even resistant to cold damage. How does it survive down there? Oh, and the water better not be murky, because it doesn't have blind sight, and true sight can't see through murky water, or the foggy weather it can create with its regional control. And what is a CR23 creature doing with no legendary resistance? And here are its saving throws. So our 17th level spellcaster has a DC of 8, plus proficiency of 6, plus casting ability, which is probably 5, then maybe another plus 2 or so magical bonus, and that's a spell DC of 21. That would mean the Kraken succeeds on 85% of strength saves, 35% of dexterity saves, 70% of Constitution saves, 65% of Intelligence saves, 55% of Wisdom saves, and only 25% of Charisma saves. With the casters in the party outnumbering the single Kraken, it's going to fail saving throws, especially if they target the right ones. Then, it has an armor class of 18, so, that's like full plate, right? But consider a 17th level weapon user. You got a 6 proficiency, plus 5 ability score modifier, plus maybe 2 from a magic weapon or something. And then there's all the class and subclass features that can help you hit. So let's say that averages out to a flat plus 2. Well, that's plus 15 to hit. That means 90% chance to hit. 65% if you're using Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master with the minus 5 plus 10 mechanics. That 18 armor class is not doing this Kraken much good. So then we have 472 hit points, which sounds like a lot, but let's say we have 6 characters and they all took, a 2-level Warlock dip, and they shoot Eldritch Blast with Agonizing Blast and Repelling Blast, and they don't feel like expending any resources on such a wussy creature. Well, here's the math. It's up on your screen, they kill it in 2 rounds. And with Repelling Blast, they can keep it out of tentacle range the entire time. They just push it to 120 feet away and continue blasting. No resources expended, just 2 levels in Warlock each. And if they're all Hexblades and decide, sure, let's use our Hexblade curses, we get them back after a short rest anyways, then here's the math for that. Just over 1 round, and it's dead. It will get 1 action, which will have to be the 4d10 Lightning Storm because it won't be able to get in range. 4d10 damage once to 3 17th level characters. And there is some other weird stuff here too. Like, look at this Lightning Storm. Is the idea that the Kraken is calling down lightning from the skies? Like, even clear skies? Or is it shooting lightning like it's Electro fighting Spider-Man or something? And an Intelligence 22 creature, it's alive for eons, and there are no proficiencies at all. It's learned no skills, not one, in all these thousands of years. And what's with this fling ability? So if it actually gets to make a tentacle attack, which I wouldn't count on, well then it can grapple the target with it. Then it can later fling that target as part of its multi-attack action or as a legendary action. But check this out. It says, if the flung creature strikes a solid object, it takes 1d6 damage per 10 feet it was thrown. Is it speeding up in midair or something? I guess if you want to do more damage with thrown weapons, just get further from the target. It doesn't make any sense. And it's thrown in a random direction? Why? This is an Intelligence 22 creature. It can't control its own tentacles? So despite this being a wussy creature for a challenge rating 23, it also doesn't make a lot of sense. Of course, we could use something else similar. Flea Mortals from MCDM has a version of the Kraken. It's CR26. So here's the artwork up on your screen. Looks like a giant sea serpent. And I would assume this creature has some kind of constrict attack, like a constrictor snake, and then maybe a powerful bite attack. Wouldn't you think so, looking at this? Well, guess what? Nope. No constrict attack, no bite attack. This creature makes psionic attacks. Yeah, look at the artwork. Obviously, this is a psionic opponent. And check this out under condition immunities. It's immune to petrification. Did they even see Clash of the Titans? Though I'll give it this, it is definitely tougher than the Monster Manual Kraken. I just don't think it really feels like the Kraken anymore when it's killing you psionically. So I guess we could use Traumacratus from Mythic Odysseys of Theros, and I have to say, I am not in love with this art. Also, it's only tentacles that are like fingers on one of its hands, which all make a single attack, and then there's a pincher attack, and yeah, it's vaguely Kraken-like, but not a Kraken in the way I envision them. I like the Monster Manual Kraken, at least thematically. So let's fix it. And once we have a Kraken that is going to terrify our poor players, then...
Release the Kraken!
So I call this Kraken Released. It is based on the Monster Manual Kraken, and it shares all the same layer actions and regional effects. I think those are all fine. And I will warn you, this isn't like a CR23 creature in D&D. It's what a CR23 creature in D&D should be. A difficult challenge for a 17th level party. You do not need to give this creature minions. I mean, the Kraken acts alone, and it's tough, all on its own, to challenge even optimizers. Now I will be showing all of its statistics up on the screen, but if you want to follow along in a Google document, I have got the full statistics for you linked in the video description. You can also use that if you actually want to use this monster, so that you can run it off your table. So let's take a look. So first of all, you'll notice its armor class has been dramatically improved to 26. That number is not random. Remember the plus 15 average to hit from party members? That's a 50% hit chance with each attack. 25% if they want to use Sharpshooter or Great Weapon Master. They're going to want to find advantage somewhere. Hit points are actually lower at 420. I reduced it to 24 hit dice. Trust me, it does not need to be higher because, as is fitting, the Kraken is now a mythic creature. We'll go over the mechanics of that soon. So the ability scores, they add up to the same amount, but I lowered intelligence by 6, and I increased charisma by 6. Thematically, I think this is fitting. The Kraken is a presence, and it's smart, but is it smarter than Albert Einstein? I don't think so. Mechanically, this serves a purpose too, because we're reducing one of the higher saving throws, and we're increasing a lower saving throw. So our saving throws are just all more now balanced out. And I added some proficiencies that just made sense to me. Athletics, history, insight, intimidation, and perception. And the perception proficiency, by the way, improves its passive perception to 25, so no using pass without trace with a non-stealth based party to get surprise on the Kraken. And I have switched its 120-foot true sight to blind sight, so now it can see in murky waters and foggy weather at least to 120 feet. And I removed freedom of movement, and I just gave it immunity to the grappled and restrained conditions. It mostly does the same thing, and it's easier to keep track of and adjudicate. It's still amphibious, and it's still a siege monster, but I've added colossal, which says, due to its immense size, the Kraken cannot be moved against its will. No pew-pew Eldritch Blast in pushing this thing. And here's the big one. Tentacles. The Kraken has 10 tentacles. No tentacle may be moved more than 60 feet from the Kraken by any means, as in, the tentacles are using separate tokens. Each tentacle may be attacked separately. They each have an armor class of 22 and 50 hit points. A tentacle that drops to 0 hit points dies. So here's our battle map. You can see we have a big 5x5 gargantuan Kraken and 10 medium-sized tentacles, all numbered from 1 to 10 so they're easy to keep track of, and they're all within 60 feet of the Kraken. But wait, it's going to get cooler. When a tentacle dies, the Kraken loses one of its legendary actions permanently. What? So easy to remove legendary actions? Well, I would hope so, because the Kraken has 8 of them. Yes, 8 legendary actions. Kill a tentacle, it has 7. Kill 8 tentacles, it has 0. And so what happens when you kill the 9th or 10th one? Well, let's go back to tentacles. If the Kraken has been reduced to 0 legendary actions, then it can only make attacks with tentacles that remain when it attacks. Easy. Oh, and the multi-attack action has been changed to make this work. So the Kraken may move all of its tentacles up to 60 feet. Remember, within 60 feet of the Kraken. It then makes 2 tentacle attacks, not 3, or flings, or it can make a bite attack. If a creature is grappled by a tentacle, it moves with it. So the Kraken attacks with the tentacle, and it hits and it grapples, and if that creature doesn't escape before the Kraken's next turn, it can move them up to its mouth and make a bite attack. So 2 tentacle attacks on its turn, and 8 more with legendaries, which is, count it up, 10 attacks on a round, 10 tentacles. Kill 5 tentacles, it will have 5 attacks on a round. It all adds up. And you really only should be attacking with each tentacle once between rounds. So I've added this in tentacle attack or fling under legendary actions. The Kraken may only take this action with a tentacle that hasn't acted since the start of the Kraken's last turn. So you're not having the same tentacle attacking again and again. Oh, and tentacle attacks have the reach reduced from 30 feet to 15 feet because, after all, the reach is partially accounted for by them using different tokens. But if you're running this, don't think of the tentacles as creatures, because they are not creatures. They're like the heads of a hydra. So when it says you can attack a tentacle separately, You can, but if you say throw a fireball, you're either hitting the Kraken, as in the main Kraken, or you're not hitting the Kraken. Fireball is not an attack. Attacks require attack rolls. This is going to keep the party from winning the fight with one area of effect spell. So onwards. So what is the Kraken in Clash of the Titans? It's the weapon of the gods, and it's definitely mythical. So, mythic trait, weapon of the gods, recharging after a short or long rest. When the Kraken is reduced to 0 hit points, it doesn't die or fall unconscious. Instead, its armor plating cracks, and from those cracks, 2 mythic tentacles sprout. Each mythic tentacle sprouts within 10 feet of the Kraken. They each have an armor class of 26 and 210 hit points. When both mythic tentacles die, the Kraken dies. So back to our map, we have 2 mythic tentacles in reserve, hidden from the players until they get the Kraken down to 0 hit points. Then 2 more tentacles that are bigger and tougher than the other 10 sprout, and the Kraken can take 2 extra legendary actions. Which, honestly, by this point is a total of 2, because those other tentacles will probably all be dead before the Weapon of the Gods trait ever triggers. And here's why. So, 2 more traits. We got Epic Resistance. When a Kraken fails a saving throw, it may choose to succeed instead. When it does so, 1 tentacle of the Kraken's choice falls to 0 hit points and dies. If its mythic trait is active, the Kraken may sacrifice a mythic tentacle this way. And that's one thing Flea Mortals is really good with. Instead of legendary resistance that just flat out shuts down the save, there is a sacrifice to be made in order to make a saving throw. So if the Kraken uses this, the spellcaster actually made the creature weaker, though technically the Kraken could potentially do this more than 3 times. On the other hand, kill the tentacles and it can't do this at all. And if it's only got mythic tentacles, that is a huge sacrifice to make a saving throw, because you kill those 2 tentacles and the Kraken dies. So if you want your big moment where you're going to, say, petrify the Kraken, you can attempt that right near the end of the combat, after the mythic trait is active, and then it might actually work. But at the beginning of the combat, it's not going to work, because we don't want this to be like Clash of the Titans, where, combat begins, Perseus raises the Medusa's head, Kraken is petrified and crumbles. I mean, that might be okay for a movie, it's not good for D&D combat. And then its last trait, Epic Fortitude. When the Kraken takes damage that would reduce it to 0 hit points, it interposes a tentacle to avoid the damage. The tentacle takes the damage instead of the Kraken. Of course, if it has no tentacles, it can't do this. So when I said the Kraken should have no tentacles left when it's reduced to 0 hit points, I'm not guessing. It's set up. Okay, so what else? We got the Bite, which is the same, but since the multi-attack is now just 2 tentacle attacks, the sacrifice you make to make a Bite instead isn't as big. So if the Kraken can bite, it probably should bite. And because bite is an option through multi-attack, the tentacles can be moved with the same action, they just can't attack. So if you're grappled by a tentacle at the start of the Kraken's turn, you're in trouble. Oh, and Fling. So there's 2 things that have changed. First, if you hit a solid object when you're flung, you take 66 damage. I don't care how far you moved. You don't speed up the farther you're thrown. Second, if you hit a creature, they make a dex save or you split the damage, so 3d6 each. Finally, the direction isn't random anymore. Why was it random? I don't know, but now the Kraken can choose where it flings you. And I got rid of Lightning Storm. Instead, I gave it Lightning Strike, which it uses instead of using multi-attack if it wants. During a period of overcast skies, which, by the way, the Kraken can create with its regional effects, but you need the clouds. So there's no lightning strikes on a sunny, clear day. The lightning strikes a point the Kraken chooses, then 60-10 damage, save for half for all creatures within 5 feet of that point. So it's like Call Lightning, cast at 5th level on a cloudy day. I think that's pretty mild for a CR23 creature, but most of the time you want a multi-attack anyways. You don't want the Lightning Storm to be the primary feature of this creature. Oh, and objects of magical force in the area are automatically destroyed. So if there's Wall of Force shenanigans or something like that, you can use your action to do the Lightning Strike instead of the multi-attack, and you can destroy it. And legendary actions remain the same, but remember you start with 8. So you could do a Lightning Strike, and then an Ink Cloud, and then a Tentacle attack, all between the Kraken's turns. And finally, mythic actions. So remember, we have 2 mythic tentacles, and we can use a mythic action, which can be taken in place of a legendary action, to make a mythic tentacle attack, which does 6d6 plus 10 instead of 3d6 plus 10, because it's bigger. And if you use Fling, it can fling an object or creature up to 120 feet. And that is fun. I mean, for the DM. But the DM gets to have fun too. Oh, and double the distance, double the damage, 12d6 or 6d6 each if another creature is hit. Kill both the mythic tentacles, and the Kraken finally dies and slips between the waves. So this is now a really tough encounter for a 17th level party. Your players won't know what hit them. So the next time you're running a water-based adventure for a high-level party...
Release the Kraken.
Thanks, everybody. Now I'm gonna sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Happy Kraken Week to you all.